The earth didn't just tremble, it shuddered. This wasn't some random earthquake, it was the rhythmic, bone-crushing stride of the ultimate predator. The jungle had gone dead silent. Birds forgot how to chirp, and smaller creatures scrambled into the deepest burrows they could find. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy in jagged streaks, illuminating the king of this nightmare. Tyron, standing 20 feet tall and weighing several tons. Tyron was a mountain of muscle and scales. His golden eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned the shifting shadows for any sign of life. Every breath he took sounded like a low, guttural engine idling in the dark. Tyron caught a scent on the breeze, the metallic temps of a wounded Triceratops. He tilted his massive head, his serrated teeth glinting like rows of obsidian daggers. Every step he took left a crater-like footprint in the soft mud. He burst through the underbrush into a clearing, locking eyes with his prey. Then, he let out a roar that didn't just ring in the ears. It vibrated in the bones of every living thing for miles. It wasn't just a sound, it was a death sentence. Tyron lunged, his powerful hind legs propelling him forward like a freight train. The hunt was on. The hunt wasn't a walk in the park. The Triceratops lowered its massive head, pointing 3 lethal horns straight at Tyron's chest. The two titans stared each other down. Tyron knew that one wrong move meant a horn through the gut. He began to circle, his intelligence matching his brawn. He wasn't just a beast. He was a strategist. Dust kicked up and the humidity felt like a physical weight. Suddenly, Tyron feinted to the left, then lunged for the throat. But the Triceratops was quick, swinging its armored frill and slamming into Tyron's ribs. Tyron stumbled, the impact knocking the wind out of him, but he didn't go down. He dug his claws into the dirt and regained his balance. Blood and sweat smeared his hide, but his eyes were fixed on the prize. He noticed the Triceratops was flagging its movements were getting sluggish. Seizing the moment, Tyron leaped with explosive force, his jaws pecking 12,000 pounds of pressure clamping down on the herbivore's neck. The sound of snapping bone echoed through the trees. Tyron stood over his fallen rival and let out a victory roar, claiming his throne once again. Tyron ruled the valley, but every king has a target on his back. From the jagged edges of the northern territory, a new threat emerged. These guys were slightly bigger and had a mean streak. Tyron was still cooling down from his kill when he felt the vibe shift. He turned to find the duo encroaching on his turf. They weren't solo hunters. They worked as a team. Tyron was outnumbered, but he had the home field advantage and a heart full of fire. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The sun was setting, bleeding crimson across the sky like an omen. Tyron gave them a low, warning growl, but these newcomers weren't backing off. They tried to flank him, circling like wolves. Tyron swung his massive tail, a heavy club of muscle that sent one of them sprawling into the dirt. The other managed to sink its teeth into Tyron's shoulder. Pain flared, but it only fueled his rage. He whipped around and delivered a devastating headbutt that cracked his opponent's jaw. He showed them that size is one thing, but sheer don't mess with me attitude is another. The dust from the fight hadn't even settled when the sky turned an eerie, bruised purple. Tyron looked up and saw a falling star that put everything else to shame. It wasn't a star. It was a massive asteroid, a mountain of fire screaming toward Earth. The air turned blistering hot in seconds. Birds fell from the sky, and the panicked screams of dinosaurs filled the air. Tyron, the king who had faced every claw and tooth, was now staring at an enemy he couldn't bite. When that rock hit, the world literally broke. A shockwave of fire and ash tore through the landscape, erasing the lush green jungle in a heartbeat. Tyron tried to run, but the ground turned to liquid beneath his feet. The heat was suffocating, turning the very air into a furnace. He watched as his kingdom vanished into a wall of gray soot. The king of the world was suddenly a witness to the end of it. He let out one final, defiant roar, mix of fury and heartbreakers. The sky went dark. Days later, the world was a ghost town. A thick shroud of ash choked out the sun, plunging the planet into a perpetual nuclear winter. Tyron was weak. There was no food, no water, and every breath of the toxic air felt like swallowing glass. He lay at the base of a crumbling cliff, his ribs heaving. He looked out over the charred remains of his empire. But even at the end, Tyron didn't look defeated. His eyes still held that flicker of prehistoric royalty. He summoned every last ounce of strength to stand one last time. He wobbled, his massive frame failing him, and he finally slumped back into the dust. Tyron's death wasn't just the end of a predator. It was the closing chapter of an era. Millions of years passed. His bones turned to stone, buried deep beneath the layers of time. Today, when we dig up those fossils, we're reminded that a true king once walked this earth. Tyron's story ended in the dirt, but the legend of the T-Rex will live forever.